Hello all, welcome back to Tech Capture. So in 2 months back in November, I released my playlist on Google Agent Development Kit, where I released videos of all the basic stuff about Google Agent Development Kit, what is Google ADK, how to install it, how to use it, how to create your first agent, how to use tools, how to use the different types of tools, what are the different agent types, what is loop agent, what is workflow agent, and then what is the LLM agent. So all these basic stuff I tried to cover in my playlist, but while going to the comments and the conversation, and also made few peoples in the latest dev seasons and the event, so I see a lot of discussions around using the sessions or using the memory. So I got a lot of requests from the people where they are requesting to create more videos on advanced topic in the Google ADK. So I can list it down the topic they created or they requested about the session management, memory management, then how to use evaluation, then how to use the model armor, and then how to integrate with the Gemini Enterprise, or how to deploy the agent, and how to use along with the third-party UI. So a lot of requests I am getting from a lot of learners, and I'm thankful for all the supports I am getting for this ADK playlist. But now I am here to help you, and I have decided to create a advanced level of videos in ADK. So in this video we are going to discuss about context management in ADK. So we'll discuss what is context management, what are the part of the context management, what is sessions, what is state, what are the different types of state, how to use that state in the agentic workflow, and then also what is the short-term memory, what is the long-term memory, how we can use a long-term memory, and what is the difference between short-term memory and long-term memory, where we need a short-term memory, where we need a long-term memory, what are the advantages and disadvantages of using, let's say, the short-term memory or a long-term memory. So all these things we will see in detail, not only on the slides. We will implement the demo for each of these topic, each of the service, and we'll show you the real world example, or I would show you the demos how we can use each of these service. Okay, so I will just walk you through first what is a context management. Okay, so let's take an example here. So context management in ADK is basically how an agent remembers, stores, and uses information while interacting with the user or other agent. So let's take an example. I went to some of the conferences or event and met with the new people. I interact with natural language. Let's say, hey, hi, my name is Vishal, and the another person will remember my name as a Vishal, and he will just next time whenever he'll call me, he will call, okay, hey, hi Vishal, because now he's having my name in his memory, so he can understand that. But what about agent? These are part of the AI or artificial intelligence, so where they are storing the information. Let's say I'm talking with the agent and I said, hey, my name is Vishal, so the next time it should not ask my name again, it should store it somewhere. Or let's say, I'll show you one more example. If I am asking my agent who is a prime minister of India, okay, it can give me the answer. But if let's say I'm asking who is a prime minister, that is the incomplete context for the agent, right? Because it can be a prime minister of US, it can be a prime minister of UK, it can be a prime minister of any of the country, but I'm not giving any details about the country. I'm asking very vague question, who is a prime minister. But let's say I am in the middle of conversation with my agent. So initially I ask what is a capital of India, or what is the population of India, and now I ask the same question, who is a prime minister. Now my agent already have that historical conversation or the conversation history which is stored in a session, and he will understand the next follow-up question, who is prime minister of India, is about the previous conversation which is about India. Okay, so he will give you the answer without asking the follow-up question. So this all information is stored in the session. So that's how the session helps while giving or working with the agents. Okay, so when we talk about again the context management, session is not only one thing. So in context management there are three different parts of the context management. I just tried to put it in the hierarchical diagram here. So let's say there are short-term memory, there is a long-term memory, and there is an artifact. These are the raw, I would say, the part of the context management. So in short-term memory, it can be your session service. So in session service, we'll use mainly for storing the conversation history and storing the state. So we'll say in detail what is state. But before that, in session service, there are three different session service. One is your memory session service, then you are having Vertex AI session service, and then you are having a database session service. So in memory session service, definitely it is not a persistence. As you restart your application, your memory will be completely lost. Okay, then the Vertex AI session service is the managed Vertex AI session service, which can be used along with the agent engines, which is a persistent. Even though your agent is restarted, you can still access that sessions. Okay, and then the database session service, where you can use a relational databases to store your sessions. So we'll see the demo with each of these session service. This is a short-term memory. Now why I'm saying short-term memory, let's say suppose example, you are talking or interacting with the chat GPT. You created a new chat and you start asking the question, so it can understand all the previous history within the same session itself. But if you create a new chat and try to answer something, it will not have that additional information which you already interacted with the agent in the another chat. So scope of the short-term memory is mainly within that session only, not in the new chat, okay, or not in the new session. But in long-term memory, it can be persistent. Your session history can be persistent across all the session. Let's say in one session I talk about, okay, my name is Vishal, and then I am opening a new chat, I'm asking what is my name. It will not answer me in short-term memory, but in long-term memory it can access my all the sessions, and it will give me the answer, okay, your name is Vishal, or immediately it will say, hey, hi Vishal. Okay, so it is about the long-term memory. So again, for using the long-term memory, we are having two options: in memory service and the Vertex AI memory bank. The same concept here. If you restart in memory service, will lost all the previous sessions and it will start from the scratch. But if you are using the Vertex bank, your conversation will be remain there in the, or memory will be remain there even after the restart. So that is for the persistent store of your long-term memory. And the artifact is just kind of the files. Let's say during the conversation with agent, you are creating some JSON file or any XML file, and you want to store that somewhere during the conversation, so the another agent or the same agent can access it further in the conversation. Then you can store it as a file. Now storing as a file, you have the artifact service. Again, there are two types of artifact service. Is one is in memory artifact service. The same thing, it will lost, it will store in a temp directory and it will be lost once you restart your agent. But if you store a GCS artifact service, then it will store your artifact in the GCS bucket, so it will be there even your agent get restarted. Okay, now these are just overview of context management. Now we'll deep dive in each of these topics. So we will deep dive into a short-term memory, we'll go into the long-term memory, we'll go into artifact, and in short-term memory also we'll see demo on each of the session service. We will see how to implement in memory session service. We'll create one agent, then we'll see how to implement the Vertex AI session service, or how we can use a Vertex AI session service along with the agent development kit deployed on agent engine. Also we'll see a database session service. So we'll take example of Cloud SQL, where we will store our session in the MySQL instance of Cloud SQL, and we can access it even after the application restart. The same thing in memory service, we will see the hands-on demo. We'll try to store our memory in memory as well as in the Vertex AI memory bank. So we'll see all the example, all the hands-on demo. Okay, now we'll discuss about the session and state. So let me just go to the session, so we can refer it as a short-term memory, because it will identify, or it will remember the information within that particular session ID only. If you create a new session or start new chat window, it will not remember the conversation you had in the another session window. Okay, so that's what we call it as a short-term memory, because the scope is within that particular sessions. So purpose, the session tracks the context for a single conversation. That's why we call it a short-term memory. So it is the store the conversation and some metadata about the user and agent interaction, and ensure the agent remember the previous interaction, maintaining the continuity. So let's say if I am talking to the agent and asking the follow-up question, so it will help to agent understand the context and maintain the history along with the continuity using the session, because it store the information but it also remember the interaction in the current session. Okay, so there are three different session service available. So one is in memory session service, where you will lose your session when the memory when the agent is restart. It is good for testing and development. Then we are having a Vertex AI session service, which is on a Google Cloud Vertex AI. You don't have direct access at the back end of that the Vertex AI session service, but you can use the database session service, which you can use along with the relational database like MySQL, SQL Server, or Postgres. So we'll be using a Cloud SQL, where you will have access to actual schema of your databases. Okay, so this is the persistent storage for your control. Now let's understand what is state. Okay, So let me just give an example. I met with my friend in one of the event, and I told him, okay, my name is Vishal. Okay, and when he meet me in the event, same event, in let's say 15 minutes, he will understand or he will remember my name is Vishal. But let's say I ask him, okay, please have my mobile number, and I gave my mobile number. So he'll not try to remember. What he will do, he will just pull out his mobile and save my number somewhere in his contacts or notepad, or let's say in previous day we use a diary to store that number. So similar concept apply here. So everything is not stored as a conversation. So ADK or agent use some kind of scratch pad to store the relevant information, the useful information, that is we call as state. Okay, so I tried to put it in a simple word. So in each session, the state works like agent personal notepad for the specific chat, while session dot events keep the full history of that what happened. Okay, so session dot state, so these are just the object is where the agent saves the update the important working details. So it can be anything. Once we have the demo, we'll understand the better what we are talking about. So state, just understand, is just like a personal notepad for agent where he can write down some information and he can use that information in a next stage or in the further in workflow. Okay, so the use case, let's say the in multi-agent system, it helps sub agent to share information. I will give an example. In my previous videos, I created one multi-agent system for creating or helping the job assistants. Okay, so let's say one agent will look for the current job opening, another agent will create a interview questions on that job opening, and third agent will create the kind of the whole interview tips. So in this scenario, whenever the first agent will search the current job opening, it will store in a state, and the second agent will use that state, get that opening, and then create an interview question based on that opening. So that's how we can use this in multi-agent system. Whenever we want to share some information from one agent to another agent, we can store that information in a state and we can use it so the next agent can access that information. Then let's say some agent A can store key data and instead for the sub agent B can use it later. State can hold a user metadata. Let's say suppose user ID, role, department. One example we are going to see, let's say I am having the multiple users. So some users are having admin roles, some users are having HR roles, and my agent is HR agent. So he always check for the user role. If it is HR, then only it will provide a data from the HR database. If the user is not from HR department, then the agent will not respond. So where we can get the agent role, so we can store it in the user state. So that's how we can use these user states as well. So agent can apply conditional logic, as I mentioned, checking the department and then only giving the response. So that is the conditional logic which agent can use using the state. Only admin, as I mentioned, the example, only admin can access the certain agent or a certain feature. Then we have to go back in the state, check the user state, user role, user email ID, and then take the next conditional state. So also there is a specific schema for these the sessions. So I will try to show you here. So there are 4 tables whenever we are storing the session database. So there are 4 tables. One is app state, which store the states about the application. Then we are having user state, which store the states about the users, and then we are having the sessions where we'll have the actual conversation stored. So here we'll have the ID, and this session ID is just referring to the events, and events will have your whole conversation. Okay, so in sessions you will having the user ID, session ID, app name, so these kind of details, but it will point to the events table, and the event tables have the primary foreign key relationship. So session ID and event ID holds all your conversation history. Okay, so I will show you these tables in detail while having the demo, while we create a database session service. So I will show you how we can see this data, how we can see the states. So everything I am going to show you. Okay, so this is all about state. Now let's see a different types of states and their use case. Okay, so there are different types of state. One is session state, then user state, app state, and then the temporary state. So I try to put it in a table so it is better to understand where we can use the session state, what is the scope of a session state. So when we use a session state, that state is only within the current session. If your agent start a new session, it will not able to access the current session state. Okay, its persistence only if you are using the persistent database or a session service. So persistence is always depend on the session service you are using. If you are using the in-memory session service, your state will not be a persistent. Then the user state, so shared this state across all session for the same user. Let's say I am the user Vishal and I'm having 10 different multiple sessions. So once I added something in my state, it will be visible in all the conversations, not only the single conversation or a single session. So the few things like user email id or user the department, that thing will not change, so that I can keep in the user state, so it can be accessed across all these sessions. Okay. And then we are having app state. App state is related to the agent. Some, let's say you want to share some information about agent which will be constant across all the users. It can be constant across let's say all these sessions. Then you can store that in app state. So one example, it's showcasing the agent version or some metadata about agent or some agent documentation or support email id. That things you can store it in the agent state, so anyone and all the sessions in your state can access that. Okay. And temporary invocation is during only the current invocation. Once the new invocation start, it will vanish that state. Okay. So different state type, different use case. So we'll try to see all the state types here, where we can use the session state, how we can use that, and try to see the use cases. So I put the some common use cases as well from the actual my experience. So wherever we have the task in progress, let's say one agent is doing one thing, then the next step, then third step, so we can track that progress in the session state. So let's say the current intent is booking flight. Once the booking flight is done, then make payment. And then the user state we can use for user preference or profile detail. Let's say user preferred language, user email id, user department, and based on that we have to do access control. We can use that in a user state. And then we are having app state, the global configuration, as I mentioned, app wide setting, the agent version or anything which is applicable to all the users and all session, we can store it in the app state. And then some intermediate tool outputs, we just need, let's say, some calculation for the latest invocation. Then it doesn't make any sense to use the same or the another session every time. It can be a different. In that case you will use a invocation state. Okay. So these are the 4 different types of state. So understanding these types and scope is important while designing the multi-agent system or while designing the enterprise grade the agentic solutions. Okay. So this all about just understanding the state, understanding the sessions, understanding the schema. But now we will jump into the actual demo. We'll start creating the agent with different session types, different session service, and we'll see what are the different states we can use along with the agent. So let's see you in the next video.